Okay, well, everyone, hello. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to another Readers Without Borders session. As you know, we meet once a month, one Saturday every month, 10:30 a.m. And I know many of you have come from, it's 7:30 a.m. from Silicon Valley to 7:30 p.m. all the way in Pakistan. Today we have our friend Mashhood Alam in Silicon Valley, who is himself an author, he's a technologist, and he's an openite as well, open charter member from Silicon Valley. So he recommended this New York Times bestseller on AI. And, without further ado, I'm going to give this to him to talk about this book, why he chose it, share a little bit about the plot and his perspective as both an industry insider and someone who's read and reviewed the book. So with that, Mashu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Amreen, and great to meet all of you as well. I've not been a consistent member of the group, but really appreciate Amreen remembering and pinging me. So I'll try to be more consistent going forward. But hey, this is great to be a part of this group. Let me just, the way I thought about it was kind of prepare a less than 5 minutes summary and some thoughts around it. And then I've also kind of prepared a few questions depending on how the conversations go today. I would probably throw those questions in to really hear your perspectives, which I value a lot. So today, as Ambreen mentioned, the book is The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. This book was, I think, published in September of 2023, and it was just a few months after the AI terminology through ChatGPT started becoming a key part of regular parlance for masses, really. And the important part of the book was that Suleiman, as you may have already searched about him, is not just a commentator or an academic writer. He co-founded the firm DeepMind. If you followed the space, that was the reason for the AlphaGo and some of the other capabilities that became foundational for later on protein discovery and other capabilities, and also which learned the Go. Well, AlphaGo was the for the Go program, which is considered the most complex cognitive game. And its program actually first beat the world champion from Korea, but also learned the AlphaGo from knowing nothing about the rules to being an expert within 4 hours. So there was a lot of capabilities. His co-founder was Dennis Hanabis, who later on went on to won I think, the interesting part over the last 18 months have been that in the Nobel Prize have been shared by two AI technologists. One was Dennis Hanabis, who was the co-founder for DeepMind as well. Mustafa then co-founded Inflection AI and is now the CEO of Microsoft AI, and has been a key figure driving the advancements in this space. So that kind of brings a lot of weight to what he's saying and what he's seeing and what he's conveying. Um, and the key, if, for those who have already read it, the book is not just crying fire from a safe distance. He's the one who's actually holding some matches as well. So, the central argument of the book can be stated simply that we are on the cusp of a wave of technologies that will be radically more powerful, radically cheaper, and radically more distributed than anything that came before. And we just do not have a plan for containing them. I'll talk about what he talks about when he says containing them in a bit. At the heart of the wave, as he calls it, there are two key general purpose technologies: artificial intelligence and synthetic biology. But he's careful to say they don't travel alone. Two more technologies right alongside and amplify them. Robotics is one, which essentially lets intelligence reach out from the screen and manipulate atoms, factories, vehicles, bodies, pretty much the real world as well. And the fourth one is quantum computing, which could eventually crack the cryptographic locks on which modern civilization quietly depends upon. Taken together, these four converge. So AI, synthetic biology, then robotics and quantum computing. It designs proteins. The biology builds them. AI commands robots, and robots act in the real world. And quantum accelerates AI and breaks the security assumptions of both. This convergence, it's not just a single technology, it's is what he calls a wave. Um, so Mustafa defines four features that make the wave different, and these are very alarming as you would realize it. The first is asymmetry. Um, Small actors now have the power which used to be in the hands of large organizations, large governments. So a person sitting in a garage could use these technology to create a bioweapon as well, for example, and create a $1 billion enterprise as well, and also find a cure, perhaps. Um, that's the one part, the asymmetry part. So distributed, and we have started to see the impact of that in the world of business and in the warfare as well. Where right now there's a war going on, where to save from 20 to 30 thousand dollar um, drone, the incumbent powers they are using $2 to $4 million missiles, multiple of them. So the cost has gone down, and that application we start to see now in the real world in a very devastating way. The second feature that he defines is hyper evolutionary or exponential. So these technologies are improving faster than we can regulate. And if a lot of you have read the exponential curve, it's not just um, the duration of each cycle of improvement, where the capabilities are doubling for the same cost, but the pace at which the exponent itself has an exponent. So it's crazy fast. It's hard for anyone to keep track of the immense amount of progress happening in these space. So that's the second one, hyper evolutionary or exponential. The third feature that he talks about is omni-use. So every tool is a weapon, and every weapon is a tool as well, and its application is across many different areas, not just confined to one specific one. And then finally, which is probably the most ominous feature, is the autonomous, being autonomous. It can act on its own. Probably from AI perspective, this is the first technology in the history of humanity which is not going to be dependent on a human making a decision, but they will be making decision themselves. I mean, in our daily lives, we all use many AI algorithms to guide our lives as well. So that is another part. Again, to summarize the key features that he highlights, one is the asymmetry, second is exponential or hyper evolutionary, third is omnious, and then the fourth one is autonomous part of it. So these are the key features of this wave of four technologies. The heart of the book is what he calls containment problem, and which is a well-known problem in this space, keeping these technologies under meaningful human control, technically, politically, and culturally. His honest assessment is that we don't know how to do it, and worse, the incentives running through every government and every company, his own included, are pushing hard against containment. Then he sets up the book's most provocative dilemma is if we fail to develop these technologies, nation states weaken, economies stagnate, rival powers who don't share our values race ahead. If we succeed at developing them without containment, we get catastrophe. So there's a narrow path between these two, and he's not entirely sure whether this narrow path even exists. So, three things I want to flag before we dive in. One, Mustafa names a trap he calls pessimism aversion, the reflexive urge, especially in tech circles here, to dismiss dark force forecasts as alarmists. I'd um, ask all of us today to notice when we feel that pull today. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's a defense mechanism. So the other part is this book is almost 3 years old, say probably 2.5 years old, and I read it as soon as it came out. So some of his predictions have aged beautifully, and some have not panned out yet. So we have watched autonomous agents move from speculation to product. Humanoid robots go from lab demo to factory floor. We see self-driving cars as well. We see AIs used in warfare. We have seen AI designed drugs enter trials, and quantum milestones have arrived. Quantum computing has not yet hit mainstream. So we're still a little bit away from cryptographic nightmare, which is about to be unleashed. Reading this book is now a strange privilege. So we are essentially living the forecast that he made 2.5 years back. And that also shows you the speed at which the changes are happening. And then finally, uh, Mustafa, we have to recognize he's not neutral. Um, and he is simultaneously the oracle and the problem. The book is partly a warning and partly it's a preemptive absolution that, hey, I told you it would be hard. Our job today probably is to take his arguments seriously without taking them at face value. So feel free to challenge today as well. So here is how I'd love to use our time. Start with your first reactions, and then maybe walk through the core, what you took out of it, and then look at what has happened since publication as well, and then see whether we agree and we are moving in this direction quickly or not, whatever. And finally, what should we as ordinary people actually do? So let me open with the most basic question possible is what did you feel when you closed the book after reading it? Were you hopeful? Were you frightened? Were you unconvinced? Were you exhausted? So I would love to start by hearing what you felt after you read the book.
I was very frightened actually. Basically, the question is when to pull the plug with AI technologies because these agents have a language of their own and they can master everything. So, what are your thoughts on that? All is very good. It's very helpful AI, but where do we pull the plug so that these agents are controlled?
I would love to see if somebody else has some thoughts around this question. So please, Sarah, maybe you were raising your hand. So go ahead, and then we can move to the Zoom user.
All right. First of all, like to be completely clear, I only got to page 100, so I might be missing a bunch of the information there. But yeah, so for me, like the reaction was a mix of emotions that like which I started with and then it got like amplified. So basically, like there was this quote somebody said that it's like a knife. You can use it for two in two ways. You can use it to cook food or you can use it to kill somebody. So it just kind of depends on how you're using the technology. So it could be good, it could be benefiting people, but then it could also, like all the things that he's predicting and warning against could happen. For me, my first reaction to technology, aside from the fact that it's useful and it's helpful and it makes life easier, is the like surveillance is what comes to me, and like just being used in a diabolical way to control people. So I haven't even gotten to the point where I'm afraid of the, machines going haywire. I'm at the point where humans are already a threat. You like governments and how they're using it against people. And then like Amber mentioned that I'm a journalist, so just like following the wars, like you mentioned, in Ukraine, they're using robots because like one of the headlines in one of the articles was basically robots don't bleed, so now they're out there as the soldiers instead, and so I don't know, as you mentioned, there's just so many different elements to it, and some of
Yeah.
it is positive, and for me, my mind is focusing on how it can be used to like control people and hurt people and all of that, and how do we, what do we do as a society to keep those things in line, basically.
So, Sarah, you highlighted a point that you would read later in the book, that he did highlight this risk and concern as well of governments using this technology to to become autocratic and enforcing that part. However, I did feel that his stance was more biased towards Western liberal democracies, which are also crumbling at this stage, and just assuming that their values are superior than the other approaches. That kind of came across as well to me. But I would love to hear from a Zoom user. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. If you can say
Apologies,
that again.
Steve Salma. Yes, I haven't figured out where to enter on this device. I felt a very fast call to action. So I have been gifting this book to as many of my colleagues who are in the AI openness. And I felt a bit of intimidation, but not really. It was, to me, a strict call to action and a sense of urgency to start understanding. I'm a very novice user of AI, so I can't say that I'm intimidated yet, but I certainly feel the wave is coming very fast, and hence take charge of it.
I think there was uh, a, a, a few places where he did mention that, and he used examples of the past, that when human beings were able to invent drastically important and impactful technologies like nuclear power, and which has been used for atomic bomb purposes too, and the like, that we have always, as a species, come together to create safeguards, and then contained the impact, or only a handful of powers could actually impact others. The rest just absorb it. But at this time around, the incentives are so skewed, and the rewards are so many, that it's not just the power in the hands of government, but actually the power in the hand of technology companies, which become, even in academia, if somebody is from academia using AI, they have to rely on the massive compute provided by hyperscalers like Google or Amazon and Meta and others. So I think that is also, we are seeing the immense amount of power that is wielding already, and they are not beholden to specific countries. They are global in nature, without the expense of keeping militaries as well. So that is another key factor that is emerging. But yeah, I would love to hear from Shakil. You're on mute, Shakil, if you're speaking.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for the summary. I haven't read the book. Being technologist in the industry for 25 plus years, I'm actually chief AI strategy officer in my tech consulting company. And I say that AI is really even making me very anxious, even though I eat and breathe technology every day. So, question probably for you is, since you have read the book, do you see any prescription by Mustafa for the technologists who were very cutting edge just 2 or 3 years ago, but now they're feeling like lost, to say the least, again, with the technological barrage of AI-based agentic solutions and their, roadness and the taking over of the even the technology jobs, and also the concern of how the financial um, outlook would look like, given that if a lot of stuff is going to be done by AI, what will the humanity be doing and how it will be surviving? Just a few thoughts. That's a question for you.
Actually, Shaquille, you raised a very good point, and that came across to me that he probably totally skipped the part of social impact, massive scale social impact that is bound to happen, which has already started with the layoffs that are coming in. That if most of the jobs are being done by AI, then what would humanity do? the the challenge is there are obviously two perspectives around it. One is there will be a different type of jobs, right, and vocations that humans and it may actually unleash um, the level of human ingenuity that has not seen in the past. So the example I use is every human beings has ideas in their head, but there are only a few human beings who are able to distill those ideas into a coherent book form, a coherent art form, and others. So they don't necessarily possess the skill of writing or painting or sculpting, etc. This might actually remove that limitation that everyone could convert their ideas into masterpieces too. So that's another kind of a talk for another time. But he totally missed I think he did not cover enough of the impact on the massive social scale, which is likely to happen, part of it. The other part is what can I mean, who am I to suggest anything to Mustafa? What I do is I use a framework that I created it's a guide for me if you think about concentric circles, at the core of the circle is zone of control. What is in my zone of control? And then if you stretch out, the next circle is zone of influence. Who can I influence with my writings, my thoughts, etc. And then beyond that is the zone of learning. What can I learn from the world? And anything beyond that is zone of distraction to me. So we have to think about what can we control, what can we influence, and what can we learn, and just focus on that. Some people have immense amount of influence across the world and across the technology circles. Some people have very limited, just to their families and maybe communities. So I think we have to just kind of look at. Otherwise, we will lose sanity if we start kind of thinking about all of that. But Hassan, you have been patiently waiting. Why don't you jump in? And you are on mute.
Unmute. Okay. Yeah. So this is another one of very interesting books, and I think a lot of people have talked about a few things that do stand out. So one is like I think when you read this book, you understand the scale of changes. Maybe the scale is too broad because he's talked about four or five different technologies and how they're all merging, but they behave somewhat similar, and then they accelerate the impact, but they also behave differently. So the solutions may be different for each of these. And then he has very well explained the urgency. Now people are asking, like as Tausif was saying, that there's a call to action, so which definitely is a call to action. But he hasn't really given too much information, and he cannot, because he gave some examples, like the nuclear example that Mashhood you were giving, where people were able to contain and manage. He gave examples of, let's say, as an example of like cars, where we understood the risk and we risk accepted. So there are a million plus people dying from car accidents every year. And we said, okay, like we understand what the risks are and this is where we're expected. So it is a call to action. He talks about that it needs to be contained. He gives some suggestions and ideas, but he also doesn't know,
Yeah.
right? So he's kind of, it's a call to action and he cannot. So the book, when it came out, you were at the start. So I think when people read this book, they feel a little bit anxious. They feel a little bit less anxious because they kind of like know that humans have found ways in the past But then the anxiety level increases when they look at the scale of this change and the pace at which it is changing. So on the one hand, it reduces, and on the other hand, it increases. Then he talks about how what could be done, but doesn't give a lot of detail because he couldn't. But that's how I read this book.
Yeah.
And then, Mashhood, you're saying whether you are optimistic or pessimistic from this. So I would say, like it was what was his name? Dick Cheney, who said there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and then there
I
are
think
unknown
Rumsfeld. It
unknowns.
was Rumsfeld. I think.
Rumsfeld, yeah. So I think I'm hoping for unknown unknowns positives that will help counter the negatives or the risks of not the negatives. I would say there are immense positives, but there are immense risks. So counter the immense risks of this.
Yeah, I think with all the on the social level, the how the humanity is evolving with extreme right and extreme left, and the middle um, portion is shrinking. I think it's we are seeing the same thing. We are seeing immense amount of benefits of these technologies already. We are seeing immense amount of harm and risks, which we are beginning to see as well. He was honest about acknowledging that he does not have the solution or no single person, because he did highlight towards, I think, the last chapter, he mentioned nine or so forces that need to come together. One is the technical part, safety, the audit of the technology, the levers to slow down development, the choke points, the builders, the makers, actually, who are not just the large companies. These are individuals now who are empowered. You and I can, within a course of a few hours, create a SaaS app by sitting in front of LLM today and some of the technologies. This power was required like a team of engineers in the past. So now we all are empowered. Then he talks about businesses themselves, governments, the need for alliances internationally, harmonizing the laws and programs, cultural aspects. So sharing of the cultures, and that's where we also see the various issues in clashing of the cultures as well. On the one hand, we have the Western individualistic approach, and then the other one is the Eastern collectivism part of it. So it does require that movement across that as well. And yeah, that's where he kind of mentioned about there might be a very small place where we can do it, but he's not sure whether we can achieve that in a timely fashion without having a devastation. Now, the other part which I would want to highlight here is why this time around it is quite different than the previous transformations that we have seen in humanity, is because this is the first time um, the machine can think for itself. Well, I mean, we still kind of challenge whether that is really true or not, but you can see that we have already seen at research labs the indications that the machines actually taught themselves, which the designer did not anticipate. One concern which he did not highlight, but also I think about on a regular basis, is what is AI, LLMs, and all these AI systems trained on? They are trained on all the digitalized human knowledge. What is human history full of? It's full of, in addition to love and empathy, it's full of deceit, dishonesty, deception, and oppression. Um, so, if you think about from that angle, what have this AI being trained on is all those qualities. Now, whether those AIs, and it is not just one, there are like multiple large language models. And large language models, if somebody doesn't know, is essentially a huge AI system which leverages massive amount of compute, which is trained of huge amount of all the human history and human data that is available, and it makes decision itself. Which you use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini when you prompt, that's actually using a large language model. So, so the challenge is that whether this AI will have its own thought and will deceive humans without knowing it. In some of the examples, AIs were started communicating with each other in a language that they created that human had no insights on. It's already happening. So, so that part. And then the final point I wanted to make in this space is what was I about to say, which is also very concerning. It'll come to me. Anyways, I won't let Shakil wait any longer. Shakil, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. One more question. So actually, for the past almost a year or so, I've been focusing on AI governance, more on the AI-centric solutions. I have created my own framework and all that good stuff for my clients to govern the agentic behaviors. So my question is, did he talk about anything specific to the governance? That's one, if you can share some words of wisdom from his book. And in addition to that, based on your reading and knowledge and expertise, would love to hear your thoughts on the governance side.
Yeah. So that kind of thanks for bringing this up, Shakir. One of the thing is in the governance, it's I don't see a way forward. Why? Let me tell you why. So let's assume that if you're talking about governance within an organization like Microsoft, AWS, Meta, or Google, like which are the leading U.S. Tech companies. Now, within that, i- and in the C-suite, and I'm not in the C-suite, so I can't tell you, but I mean, based on my conversations, would they govern themselves so that their competition can leapfrog, can go faster ahead? That is one disincentive from governance. Now, we saw that Anthropic actually took a very strong stance not to give full control to U.S. government so that they could use their technology in the warfare. But Palantir, on the other hand, and then OpenAI continuing, and OpenAI used the opportunity that within hours of that announcement, they signed a deal with U.S. government. So they're using their algorithm. They will be using their algorithm going forward. And Palantir also is a player. So organizational level, it's very hard to put boundaries on yourself. It's only driven by your own the leadership's values and belief system. Now, if you expand as an industry, so let's assume that within US, all these companies come together and form the AI governance model. Now, that means that we are putting restrictions, but then on the other hand, China does not follow that governance model. So they will continue to move farther ahead. Now, if you look at it, it's not just from the warfare perspective. There is huge amount of value, trillions of dollars of value is about to be unleashed. I'll give you just one simple example. Um, it's an AI doctor. Now, previously, when we went to our GP for some issues that we were experiencing, that GP had a very limited amount of experience. He did or she did have knowledge of the subject matter, medicine, but maybe in their course of life, they had seen, I don't know, 1,000 patients, but they did not have readily available the data of what is happening in the surrounding area. Now, AI, imagine if that GP is replaced by an AI, and I'm simplifying it, which is using data from all across the world for patients and localized as well that, hey, there is a strain of virus going on and these symptoms match it. You don't need to actually worry about taking antibiotics. Just take these home remedies and wait for another 2 to 3 days and you'll be fine. That will be much more consistent and accurate than the GP. And then it's a very simple experience as well. It- so who will be powering that AI doctor for billions of people across the world? I bet US companies are trying to do that. And I bet Chinese technology is also trying to do that. That's a massive amount of value just in this one use case. And these are like hundreds of use cases going forward. So both at the company organization level, at the country level, and at the industry level as a whole, incentives are not there to set up a governance structure. And then finally, what happens when a random actor, a nefarious actor, now who has the power, and some of those fringe groups who have the power to inflict massive damage using these technologies, um, and they are able to use these technologies for that purpose. So it's pretty pretty the chances of that kind of a governance is pretty difficult, in my opinion. Hassan, please.
Yeah, so I think, Mashud, you made a very important point, but about governance. So, as we were talking about, would parties govern themselves and limit themselves, and so this, and you gave an example of Anthropic. Um, so basically, the criticism of Anthropic CEO came before the war started, and there are like quite a bit of news and rumors or something that the attack on that girls' school leverage and Claude technology. So Dario has his criticism has escalated following that, and he's kind of like So that gives us hope that when your technology is used and it has actual real life impact on people, the human positive elements, as Mashud, you were talking about, there were negative elements, positive elements come in and they kind of like, so that's maybe a known unknown. I don't think it's unknown that humans do get up and say, look at the risk and say, whether they accept the risk or they manage the risk and to try to minimize it.
Now, one other point that came to my mind is, and this is a question to all of you, right? So this morning, or when you are going somewhere today, later in the morning, you will be making a decision of what clothes to wear, what color shirt to wear, right? So Hassan is right now wearing a blue shirt, for example. Maybe he just woke up in that, or he chose it. If I were to ask you, Hassan, why did you choose blue color, not a maroon color or a yellow color or a white color shirt? Can you explain to me?
Actually, in this case, I could because that's the first thing I saw.
Okay, that's the first thing you saw, right? That's so you fell into availability bias, right?
Yeah.
Now, the point I'm making is, if we ask, okay, why do you are friends with this person? Why do you not like this person? You will be rationalizing and giving arguments, but actually, those were not the real reasons. And I think we in this book club we read many years back. Danny Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, right? That conveys that, hey, our decisions are already made by system one, which is at the limbic system level. But we rationalize those decisions using system two, right? Sometimes. And now imagine these AI systems mimic the neurons that are in our brain. So when we talk about another discussion that come about in the circles and in technology is explanatory aspects of the decision making of AI systems, and which is a growing area of research right now. But just at the basic level, it is kind of an impossible task to explain why an AI system actually took the decision what it took. So then that also begs the question: who becomes responsible for an advent which is not aligned with our goals. So I think that becomes really challenging. These questions are, and this is also part of the governance. How would you govern something which you don't have the ability to understand or explain why it behaved the way it behaved? So
I have
that's
a
another part.
question. I have a follow-up question. So I think, as we're getting closer to the end of this discussion, is that there will be trade-offs. So what trade-offs are Mashhood or others willing to accept? Because people talk about surveillance, they talked about so those are trade-offs, and what trade-offs are you willing to accept?
Very
There
hard
there are
question.
definitely benefits. So
Yeah. Well, very
Okay,
hard.
can I add to this question?
Yeah, yeah. Please, Shakil, go ahead.
Yeah. So 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 I'm dad of three kids. They're grown up. One is in med school, and other is doing jobs. So um, really interesting is sometimes when I, as a technologist, I tell them about the privacy and the invading of privacy by the technology and all that. And they said, Dad, it's already over. They already know everything. So I give up. Let me use what I have to use, right? So adding to talking about, do we even have a choice anymore given that the device that we're using, all of us right now to attend this call, is already has the information of what you're doing, what you're not doing, where you're going, all that good stuff. So again, not to sound pessimistic, but I'm saying the fact of the matter is we're living in a very different time and space. So I don't know how should we look at these kind of questions anymore.
So Shakil, I would say one thing: privacy is a very recent concept. There was no privacy. We didn't used to have privacy. So people would be in the villages, and everyone would know about everyone. The people who were the rich, they would have uh, servants and slaves coming in and out while with knowing every single thing. So the privacy is kind of like a very, very recent concept that humans never had that level of privacy for like millennia, multiple millennia. That's one element. And then I think the other one is for vast majority of time there used to be a small elite that had all the wealth and there were the serfs or regular public that didn't. So again, maybe we're going back to that situation.
Maybe another topic for another session, I guess.
So because of AI, I think because of AI, you go back on the privacy element and go back on the wealth element.
I mean, there are arguments. That's why probably another session is required to pick some book on privacy and have conversation because I probably see it very differently the way you described. So, we can discuss things another time.
Absolutely, Shaquille. Maybe you can lead that next session.
They say there is no good deed goes unpunished. So if you suggest a topic, you're going to lead a discussion.
Yeah.
Let's recommend a book.
I don't think you're on our WhatsApp group, so you have to come on our WhatsApp group and suggest the session, and you might be the lucky person to lead that session.
Yeah. Well, I'm nobody, but inshallah, I'll see if I can help. I am in your group, and my apology, I have not been able to attend. Today, I saw your multiple reminders, and I saw the title, and I said, oh, that sounds very interesting, relevant to kind of my research that I'm working on, and my work that I'm doing on AI and governance and all that. So I appreciate all of you that you're doing.
Great. Good to have you.
I think somebody else had another hand up. Oh, Sarah, is it? Yeah. You're on mute, Sarah.
So I wanted to like if I may add to the privacy thing, I think the slight difference though is that like the yes we have had issues with privacy, but that's been like unknown circles of people, and yes it's annoying, but at least it's people we know as opposed to like survey privacy from like the government interfering into our daily lives and then in a way to control mass populations. I think like that's the part that people get like more concerned about. But like, so I wanted to bring up another thing that you brought up that I was also thinking of is just the social impacts, like on a societal level with work and stuff. Because one of the things he was talking about was like robotics and how, with agriculture, basically improving, agriculture and making it faster and more efficient, which sounds great. And it is a great thing. It's just that then it impacts things like, for example, like in the US, immigrant populations who their only way of escaping a horrible life. We're not going to get into the details of how those things happen, but then they come here and they finally the way they're able to be safe is to work like on farms and stuff. And now it would be one thing if those people who are losing their jobs to these things are now getting better opportunities. Like they're not having to do menial labor, but now they have another different opportunity. And instead, what the U.S. government is going to do is just kind of dispose of them, block them from coming, not giving them those jobs. And it's just like the efficiency is a good thing. It's just coming at the price of people's livelihoods and things like that. And you mentioned that, and I was just wondering if people wanted to have like a bit more discussion on that kind of social impact that it's going to have.
Yeah, well, to add the technology angle, now imagine the government would have access to every movement and every word that is said and done by each citizen. And with our cell phones constantly in our pocket, they can know our location at a precise time. Where have we been? Now, adding that to the digital currency, if we are able to institute that, that means that they don't have to imprison massive populations in massive concentration camps, they can just digitally block them and confine them to a specific location. That is a key concern as well. And that could be done at a hyper local level as well. You don't have to have all of those people confined living in one place. They can be living in their homes, but they still have limitations because their digital assets are only useful within certain parameters. So that is another part which we have not yet seen because digital currency has not been ubiquitous yet. But very soon, I think that that future might be unleashed too.
Also, Hollywood, like I know, they kind of give us hints into these things. Like this is years ago. They've even told us about these things where they can manipulate our money and all of that, just shut you off once everybody's on that system. So yeah, these are great things that I wish more of us would be talking about.
Yeah. Wajia, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, I have a question from this esteemed audience that how many jobs will be lost to AI? Because already due to pandemic, due to wars, the inequality has increased a lot in the world. And if more jobs are lost because of AI, inequality will increase further. So, what is the audience take on it?
Well, unless somebody wants to jump in, I would say that the jury is still out. On the one hand, the regular typical jobs are being impacted. On the other hand, there is other opportunities. I won't just call them jobs. I would call them opportunities being created for every individual to use these technologies. And that's where the singular agent, which is a human agent, now has more power than the organizations of the past. So we have to think in that broad term as well. So there might be opportunities that individuals take advantage. I know that from Pakistan, youngsters are actually using these technologies and making thousands of dollars a month. And thousands of dollars a month is a massive amount of money for when you're living in Pakistan. So I think there's going to be a huge opportunities. It won't be as stable as the jobs that our generation enjoyed. Like you were part of an you studied for one subject and you became part of the organization and worked there for 10, 15, 20 years and the kind of then jumped or retired. I think that um, the future probably would not have as many of those jobs as we enjoyed in our generation or the previous generations. But from opportunities perspective, there would be massive amount of opportunities. The time to learn a new area and then be productive will be shrinking, is already shrinking with these technologies. So I see it from that angle.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to what you said, Mashhood, I think this is probably the first time in the history of the humanity that somebody other than human has the cognitive capabilities, as you were saying a few minutes back, right? And machine is thinking, machine is reasoning. So I apologize, probably it's sounding pessimistic, but there will be, we have yet to see, and we means, I mean, people that I read and I follow, every one of them is primarily saying that it is very probably known unknown now that how the financial impact, how the job market impact, how they will unfold. Apparently, as we speak, 20,000 people got laid off yesterday and before by Facebook or Meta. 30,000 by Oracle, some thousand from Amazon the other day. Uh, so we are hearing multi-thousand layoffs day after day for the past several months now. It will continue, most likely, yes. How it will turn into a future prospect of jobs, that's yet to be seen. But I think probably what I was, thinking while listening to all of you, there should be probably another kind of conversation that should start looking at all this and finding some hope out of it, finding some optimism out of it. And that can be probably a good area of study and research and discussion.
There's a famous saying that the best way to know what the future holds is to create one. And I think these technologies will allow every individual to create the future for them. I would like to ask Heather Jaffrey Saab to maybe add some comments here.
We also have two more, by the way. We have Sherry as well as Aram as well.
All right.
So I think, and then we'll wrap up. I think that we're only have
Yeah.
time for these last three: Sherry, Heather, and Aram. So go ahead. Uh, and please have your cameras on when you ask your questions, too, so we can
And
see.
introduce yourself too, that so that we know.
So can you hear me, or
Yes.
am I on mute?
We can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, my background is obviously a mechanical engineer, and I've been using technology. I'll date myself since 1978, 79. Starting from TI instrument, programmable computers, and seeing the world change. So yeah, this is really fast forward at an exponential pace. And I think my question, many of them were raised by the earlier person asking the question, that the current wave of fear on AI and the quantum computing that's coming very soon, how do we place our youths, particularly who are in the job market or are working in their careers? That to me is the biggest uh, kind of wisdom we can collectively come together saying, as a computer science engineer, what should they be looking at? Are they obsolete? Are they looking at completely different morph jobs? So I think that's, maybe you can share some insights. That'll be great.
Well, I also have three kids. Well, they're not no more kids. They're pretty much adults now. So what I kind of see is, and I think our that generation, the next generation, is but just in many ways a lot smarter than us. They are seeing these technologies. They are actually not seeing. They're living these technologies. They have grown up living these technologies, especially AI and social part. They're also kind of seeing the negative impacts of these technologies, and they are much more. A lot of them are much more inclined towards human connection, and I think which is a great sign. I think to me, um, it's I kind of framed it into I like frameworks. Is to be successful going forward, you need to be having creative confidence. So, and I think your creativity, these technologies can amplify very quickly. So, any ideas on that piece? You need to have growth mindset. So, you can improve part, and then you need to be storytellers and like connect with human connections. I think if we are kind of inculcating these skills in our youth, I think they'll be fine. They'll figure out. But they have to go out in the real world, talk to people. The cost of finding experts and connecting with them online is just like zero now. So don't have creative confidence. Reach out to all the experts that you want to learn from, connect with, discuss ideas. And I think a lot of those are very open with their time, especially when youngsters reach out to them. So, and then negativity or skepticism has never really gotten us anywhere. So let's, with a positive outlook, leverage, harness this technology for creating opportunity and value for yourself. Then I think who's next? Iram was
Sherry?
next, or
Okay.
Sherry,
Oh,
whatever,
Sherry.
whoever. Yeah. So
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Fascinating. I didn't read the book. I apologize, but it was very, very interesting. I'm very obsessed with learning about AI, so I will get this book and I will read it. But Vajia asked about jobs. Yeah, I want to zoom out from that. I have both the feelings that everybody's talked about. Very, very pessimistic from the perspective of what happened at the Minab school and how Palantir was used, to target those 170, 180 young girls. And, I mean, they say it's an accident, but we don't even know. But it seems on the face of it that they were using old data. And this happened also in the genocide in Gaza. They've been using AI to target Hamas. So, from a Pakistani American but Muslim perspective, we're losing the race. I see, from that weapons or weaponization of this technology. If you consider it like a nuclear technology, Muslim countries are way behind, I think. Even though Mustafa is obviously, it seems from the name, he's a Muslim guy. But on the flip side, when Vijaya asked about jobs, the good news that just came out, I think many of you might have already know about this young MIT graduate. In fact, we hosted him for a lunch in Karachi before he had graduated. He was about 5 years ago. 26-year-old Swale Asif is, probably the world's youngest billionaire, I believe, because he's got a revenue of his company that he founded called Cursor, which uses AI for coding. So, I mean, that's the other side of the equation. We don't even know. I mean, if you go back in time, technology, I mean, electricity, when it was founded, put a lot of horses and cattle out of work. But look at the amount of productivity that it's brought in, the number of jobs that have been created. Same thing with the internet. Amazon has hurt a lot of businesses. But, just like that, this is going to mushroom and exponentially create opportunities as well. So mixed message, but thank you very much. Very, very fascinating discussion.
And I think, Sherry, to add to your comments, if you look at the recent or the events in the West Asia and even Pakistan, between Pakistan and India, so China is emerging as an alternate power, which is supporting countries like Pakistan and Iran in their fight, and being their technology. This is all technology driven. Their satellite system, their AI system, their data connectivity systems, etc., are actually used in defensive technologies, so defensive purposes. I think one question I would ask before we let Aram to ask her question is, um, this book assumes heavily that liberal democracies are the good faith containers and authoritarian states are the threat. I would love to hear your thoughts in terms of whether that framing is honest, or is it just convenient based
Well,
on
the US is not even a liberal democracy anymore.
whatever. I mean, but they claim to be, right. They claim to be that liberal democracy. So I would love to kind of hear your thoughts, but maybe after Aram has put her comments, then we can like conclude on that discussion.
So I'll obviously be very quick because I know we're out of time. The one thing that has not come up at all, I was at an excellent conference at
You have to introduce yourself, by the way.
Hi. Okay, so I'm Iram Sitar. I work on water and natural resources. I was at an excellent conference at MIT yesterday, which was looking at the actual build out of these data centers and the community pushback. There is massive natural resource use. And at some point, data centers like nuclear power stations decided that it was much cheaper to cool with water. So they're trying to cite this where there is water resources available. Again, communities are deeply concerned and think about it as if the entire power needs of like a city as big as Seattle, you have to put in 6 months. And there is no grid in the world that can support that. So now they're trying to build their own power systems out. A lot of these are based on natural gas, but there are a lot of particulate matter impacts of that kind of build out. The air quality is going to reduce massively, so researchers are trying to study that. So trying to just sort of think of these systems, and that's the only thing that I want to put on the table because I know we're at the end, as if these are something that operates somewhere up above and like, no, they have very
Well,
real
Iran,
world
they will very
resource
soon be.
impacts.
If Iran is successful, then we may have data centers in space, which will not require these water.
Actually, that's actually, again, researchers have studied that. I don't think that's getting built anytime soon.
Yeah.
There's massive sort of functional issues with that. So,
Yeah.
no, I don't think all of our solutions are going to be recruited out to the moon and the Mars and blah, blah. This is planet Earth, so there are natural resources impacts. That's the only thing that I want to put on the table.
Awesome.
And
Good
I think
point.
we cannot have these conversations without local community impacts. And again, with like geopolitics and nationalization, everybody's thinking we need to have our own build outs and have our structures ourselves. When in which case, then you're just going to be replicating this kind of around the world. So I just wanted to put that on the table. I don't think we should have these conversations as if like, we're building really
So
big
this is
systems.
essentially the societal impact that you're talking about, one aspect of it. So thanks for bringing this up.
Yeah, it's a natural resource impact, and I think we should keep it in mind.
Absolutely. Great. So maybe we can conclude. And if anybody wants to like jump in on the liberal democracy versus authoritarian aspects of it, well, we can conclude on that. Or or we can just wrap it up right now. But I thoroughly enjoyed your perspectives. Really appreciate all the insights, and I'm read back to you.
I think that's a great. Oh, sorry. Was someone saying something?
I'll just give one comment. A little bit funny, but as I say, might is right. So whosoever has the microphone has the narrative. It's a liberal democracy or authoritarian rules. And this is just joke, by the way. I'm trying to say that if let's say Hitler would have won, we would have a very different definition of evil entities and even evil players from the past, right? So it's all Mike is right kind of thing.
And I think.
Hang on, wait 1 second if I can.
Go ahead, Harris.
Sorry for joining so late.
No, it's always
We're
welcome. We're always happy to have you here, Harris.
You know,
Introduce yourself and have your video on though, so we can, because we need to.
everyone. Okay, well, thank you. So, Mashhood, to your question, in this period when we're all so hyped up about being Pakistani, maybe there's a hybrid option, a governance option in Pakistan that might be an alternative to these two ends of the spectrum. I'm just kidding.
Always witty comments from Horace. So thank you for that.
That's a good one.
Does anyone else want to comment on Mashhood's question? Because that was a very good question. Well, I want to thank Mashhood for number one, for suggesting Mashhood for suggesting this book. We really enjoyed reading this book. We enjoyed hearing from him. Thank you for giving us this hour so early in Silicon Valley. It's seven. He joined us at 7:15 in the morning before his morning coffee. I don't know how he was so intellectual and bright and, inspired all of us. So without his morning coffee. I learned so much from him. And thank you everyone else for joining us. I loved all the questions. I know all of you came. Some of you are coming in Pakistan, your dinner time too. So this was wonderful.